Ahoy everyone, it's Jeff, aka Godless Scummer. This little impromptu stream I only really thought about doing a couple of hours ago or so. So I know one or two come over from Purple's stream here. And so I see who's in the chat. I see Seraphim and Sandy's here. I see Dogs here. I see Granny's here. Welcome all. Good to see you all. Before I get started on the topic today, just a couple of things before we jump into this. Gonna ask something if any of you in the chat who do have a wrench. I'm gonna ask you, because of my last video, any of Darth Dawkins or his minions or turn up in the chat today, play whack-a-mole with them. Same goes for Otangelo. That, you know, he said he won't be back, but you can never tell with these guys. That guy's no longer welcome around my channel. So mods, if you see any of them, please feel free to play whack-a-mole with them, because they're, you know, they're not welcome around here. That simple. I can wrench you there, Sarah. I think, can I? Yeah, give me a second, Sarah. I'll wrench. There you are, Sarah. You're wrenched now as well. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Or any of that lot, quite frankly, Sarah. Yeah. They're no longer welcome around here. I don't want transphobic pieces of shit around my channel. It's that simple. So now that's out of the way, let's jump into the topic now. Again, before we get started, really, another thing. I know a lot. I know, looking at the title. This isn't necessarily I know sports is not a subject a lot of my people who watch my channel particularly like, especially football or soccer if you're an American. But this is less. I mean, it is about sport and it isn't. It's suppose in a certain way, it's just more about ownership in sport and politics relating to sport, and something that's happened it's happened in the UK this week. It's been fairly big news, and it's been the takeover of a Premier League club, Newcastle United, by a group called the Public Investment Fund, which is a sovereign wealth fund. Sovereign wealth, or a sovereign investment fund, is essentially a state-owned investment fund that invests in financial assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, whatever it may be. They're state-owned investment funds. Now, the PIF is such a thing. It was actually founded in August 1971 by Faisal of Saudi Arabia, and its current chairman is Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud. So essentially, really, the Saudi. I mean, in reality, although there was supposed to be assurances that the Saudi government or Saudi state would not have anything to do with this. This is quite clearly the Saudi Crown Prince taking over a Premier League football club is kind of what's happened. So, right. By the way, I do have beer for this one. I feel I'm going to need it, and I've had I like that. I do like that one, Dog. Now, okay, a couple of things. Now, for starters, I'm not going to be doing a big. Um, I'm not going to be. Let's not. I'm not here to get at Newcastle fans today, and so I don't want them singled out because. Let's be honest. We when it comes to Premier League football club owners, they're not the most reputable people in the world by and large. Um, and what I'm going to be talking about, there may even be an element of this to a certain, to a certain element with the club I support, with the owners too. But I'll touch on that briefly in a bit. But the big accusation that has come here is by the Saudi. The real big accusation that's come here is something called sportswashing, which is what I've put in the title. Now, for anyone who's not familiar with that term, it's quite simple. It's just a practice of an individual, group, corporation, or nation state using a major, prestigious international sport to improve its reputation through either hosting an event, purchase or sponsorship of teams, or by participation in the sport itself. Whatever. This is politics through sport. And this has happened. This is nothing new. And you just go on. You just look up the term sports washing on Wikipedia. You get dozens of examples of this, and you can go back to some like early examples in the 20th century or so would probably be the 1934 World Cup held in Mussolini's Italy, the 1936 Olympics held in Berlin, and obviously you go a bit further. You can think of the famous Rumble in the Jungle held in Kinshasa, Zaire, under Mobutu's regime. Goes on and on. It's the 78 FIFA World Cup in Argentina. And of course the upcoming World Cup next year in Qatar. There's plenty of examples. Saudi Arabia though, is doing this a lot. Saudi Arabia, the past few years, it has been using sporting events really to try and promote this image of themselves. So it's been, despite all the fact we know a lot about their human rights issues in Saudi Arabia, they've been using sports events to very much portray themselves as this quite this vibrant new thriving country in the Middle East that's modern, it's with the times and moving in a progressive direction. And they've been doing this back in 2019 they hosted they've used sports to do this. There was a boxing match back in 2 years ago called the Clash of the Dunes. This was the rematch between Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz Jr. for the World Heavyweight Championship, which took place in Saudi Arabia. One thing that Saudi Arabia now, I'm going to use the term sport a little more loosely here, but it is a sport in a sense. But so a number of years ago, the Saudi Arabia signed a deal with World Wrestling Entertainment, the WWE, to bring massive shows over there. Now, for my sins, I didn't mind watching a bit of WWE wrestling, but I cancelled my subscription to their network over the stuff with Saudi Arabia. Now, not so much the fact that they were holding shows there in itself, but the fact that they were flat out promoting the fucking propaganda of the Saudi regime, and it was pretty fucking sickening. And they did that the first time, and then went back out there again just several weeks after the murder of the dissident Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. I think that's how his name is pronounced. That was a massive story at the time. And of course, Prince Mohammed bin Salman has been at least implicated in that, if not actually, but it's difficult to believe he didn't know about it. So, obviously, so this is what Saudi Arabia is doing. Now, on one hand, let's view this from this whole thing with Newcastle United from the basis of your average football fan of it. Now, I would imagine if you are a fan of Newcastle United, now you might be a little conflicted about this at the moment because you do know the issues. But I understand now for the last 14, 15 years or so, they've been owned by a man by the name of Mike Ashley, who is a pretty he's a pretty damn nasty piece of work in his own right. I mean, let's be make no bones about that. He's basically known. He's best known for his company Sports Direct, which is a chain of sporting goods stores in the UK, known to pay absolute poverty wages and treat their workers like shit. Mike Ashley wasn't a nice guy, but also if you're a football fan, he's probably not the kind of person you really would like running your football club anyway. But all of a sudden now, overnight, on paper now, your football club is the richest club football team in the world on paper now. So if the point of view of a sports fan, and we know the way, I mean, there are the sort of, I suppose, financial fair play rules or whatever in place now, but but it's not like the sort of wage caps or anything you get in, so I say, some other prominent sporting leagues. So that does not exist in the English Premier League, which, as far as soccer leagues in the world go, the Premier League is the top league in the world. The most money is there. It has probably has the biggest international fan base. I mean, now it does, from what I've looked at in terms of financials or so, it's really only the three main American sports leagues like the NFL, Major League Baseball, and the NBA that actually generate more revenue than the English Premier League. But on a global reach, as far as a global reach, I don't know. I mean, the Premier League may be bigger than Major League Baseball. I don't know, because Major League Baseball does have quite a big international following, even if it has a zero following in the UK, near enough. But the NFL probably would be the biggest. But but we are talking about a major sports league here with the Premier League. And this isn't necessarily the first time that questions have been raised about the ethics, the efficacy of allowing certain people to purchase football clubs in the UK. This is a long-standing issue, but you kind of feel. I mean, it was brought up with when Sheikh Mansour bought Manchester City. But I think it's something as prominent as Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and the fact that, I mean, Amnesty International, and I will say before anyone like thinks we're just picking on Newcastle, Amnesty actually did raise something. Have did raise similar things about Abramovich in Russia and Sheikh Mansour at Man City, but you know Amnesty International actually has been lobbying for the Premier League for a while about changing their blooming rules um about this. And because as I pointed out earlier, this takeover of Newcastle United is the Premier League, so we basically sort of said, well, the Saudi government cannot have um the Saudi government, which the Saudi, which is Saudi Arabia is an autocracy, an absolute monarchy, if you will. They can't have this, but the people who now own it, this is a state investment group whose chairman is Prince Mohammed bin Salman. So the Premier League's lip service to this is pretty damn rubbish, in my opinion. And I think it's fairly safe to say that, yes, if you are a Newcastle United fan, I would understand why you're kind of excited that all of a sudden, because I'll be honest, Newcastle United have not won a trophy, like a major trophy in football, in a long, long time. All of a sudden, that they're going to be, that they could be very competitive, because if you go back 10, 15 years ago, Manchester City were like the poor, were kind of viewed as the poor, poor local rivals to Manchester United. The takeover by Sheikh Mansour. Of course, Manchester City over the last sort of 10, 15 years have won a lot of trophy. I mean, there's like, was it 5 Premier League titles? I forget this. What FA Cups? They've won the League Cups. They've in so I understand that whole thing where the prospect is that your team's in with a real shout now of being one of the big, is going to win stuff. It's you know so I get that perspective, but at a certain point, it's kind of coming to the point of, where the fuck does the Premier League or football in general draw a line? And football itself, I got onto this a while ago. This isn't the first time I've come on and ranted about football. I did a couple of times over the whole Super League debacle, European Super League debacle earlier this year, which I think was a great tragedy, because I think there was a lot of legitimate issues that could be raised, and I've said about this then. One thing I can definitely say with certainly with English football is that the test by the Premier League and the Football League of who is a fit person to be running a football club is beyond a fucking joke. I mean, we had owners of, I think it was Wigan Athletic, deliberately getting their team relegated in the league because of he'd lost a bet in a card game. That's a whole fucking story, and it's a real long and complex story in itself, which I haven't got time to get into, because that's a long story. But you get the idea of what I'm talking about here. So, if anything, above anyone else, okay, I do hold the Premier League most directly responsible for this, because this to me just shows they don't give a shit. To be honest, there's definitely the argument going around of why single football out, and I think that's a good point on this. And what we mean by this is, lots of British companies do business with Saudi Arabia, I mean, it's well known the British government supplies fucking arms to Saudi Arabia. Sure, the US government does too. And, you know, we know not just about the human rights abuses there, but we know about the role Saudi Arabia is playing in Yemen at the moment. And it is pretty damn disgusting what is going on out there. And it's so I mean, in it, and on the balance of things, you know, selling arms to these people is a damn sight more of a bigger issue than sports and football. Of course it is. But we also, I feel, you know, I also feel here's one of the things about football, and I think and sport, I suppose sport in general, and football, football has positioned itself, whether it be the government through governing bodies like FIFA, UEFA, whoever it may be, the FA, whoever it's been. They like to position themselves as they, on one hand, like to position themselves as being football spreading a positive message all about promoting peace around the world and all this stuff. Now, we know, to be honest, especially when you hear that coming from the likes of FIFA, you kind of got to laugh a little bit because I think I think the best way I've heard FIFA described is someone should put the letters M and A before FIFA for Mafifa would be a better way of describing that organization. Historically, we know anyone. I don't think a lot of people, you know, who even a lot of people who don't know the first thing about football or soccer know that FIFA is a fucking corrupt organization. Very well documented. I mean, the fact that the World Cup is happening in Qatar, and we know the kind of shit that's going on there with the you know, Labour and so on. But I guess the thing kind of comes now that what is the way forward with this? And I don't. There's a lot of things, and I've seen suggestions in there, like that dog saying, you know, wage caps and so on. I get that, especially. My issue isn't necessarily as much. I mean, I would say Premier League level, and even amongst the Premier League itself, the wage disparity between the clubs is kind of ridiculous. And I'd say the wealth. I mean, one of my biggest issues has been the wealth distribution amongst between the Premier League and the lower tiers of football. This has been one of my biggest pet peeves. You know, and you know, one of the big issues with what has been with putting wage caps on, and I get this. I don't necessarily know that it's right or wrong, but yeah, I mean, at one time, football did have a wage cap, which was almost too far, in the other direction. I mean, like you know, I mean, I know a lot of, like, say, in American sports, for a long time, people talked about like the reserve clause in baseball and the way and how shit players were treated back then. Soccer players in England were treated a lot fucking worse, I can assure you. But it has kind of swung the other way. But in a lot of ways, I don't necessarily see players' salaries as the biggest issue. I don't necessarily see that. Yeah, dog, you were absolutely right. You know, that was the most corrupt that Qatar getting the goddamn World Cup. The fact they actually got, I mean, the fact that they actually gave bear in mind that they would actually have to play in the winter there, because it is the World Cup has been traditionally a summer tournament, because it has to be because seasons are played during the autumn, winter, and spring months. It's physically impossible to play soccer in Qatar in the summer months. It is because of the damn heat. It is physically impossible. That was one of the most corrupt things ever. The get now. I mean, and as I said, really, when it comes back to Newcastle United, this is one thing I'm going to say. You got to warn. I got to say to Newcastle fans, look. I mean, look, I don't begrudge you. My argument isn't with you. And as I said, listen, I support Southampton. Okay, we're owned by a Chinese businessman. Now, to give you a bit of context, there may be an element of the sports washing going on there a little bit as well, because now a number of years ago, Xi Jinping, for some reason, decided he was a massive football fan. There was big investment in China into developing the game out there. There was the Chinese Super League, which was paying quite astronomical wages to bring players over to play football in China. And because there was this whole campaign there, I think a number of Chinese businessmen bought controlling interest in European soccer clubs, to kind of, they thought it was going to curry favor with the Chinese regime. And I think that is kind of what has happened with Southampton, because I can tell you now, certainly based on the way our club is run, there's definitely no way that this is a passion project for the people who own our club. And it's not a passion project, and it will not be a passion project for Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the PF, do not give a shit about people in Newcastle or the success of Newcastle United Football Club. Now, it's and whether the thing is financially successful, whatever. Yes, they will probably spend a lot of money on your team, and I think Newcastle will be successful in the Jews. I can't see them not winning a trophy if they're going to spend money to bring in some of the best players in the world. Of course, you'd be excited about that. Who wouldn't be? But these are, as I said, but Newcastle United Football Club is being used as a pawn here in a political game. Now, you can argue in a way it may have backfired a little bit on Mohammed bin Salman this time, because people are calling this out for what the fuck it is, sports washing, and using sport for political ends. This is what this is. This is precisely what this is. But my real big issue has been, and I understand why a number of the other clubs in the Premier League have said this is one step too far. I get why they've said that, because this has hurt the image. This is, and I'd say the Premier League have actually done something here that's just hurt the image of the Premier League and the image of just the sport in general, which is pretty damn. Which, considering everything else governing bodies have done in football, it's pretty fucking it's weird to see how the image of this sport can be damaged anymore. It really is. So, but I thought I'd jump on for a little while and talk about this. Now, I don't know if there's anyone out there who wants to jump into the stream and talk about this for a little while. I'm not going to go too long though, but if anyone does, you can hit me up before I go off. Otherwise, I'm going to go off air in a minute. But yeah, to sum this up, this is what this is. And Saudi Arabia has been doing this blatantly for a number of years now, because Mohammed bin Salman has been very much on a PR mission with where he's used sporting events and public events to try and paint a not much fluffier, nicer picture of Saudi Arabia in the West, because he knows he's well aware of how the practices of his regime. Oh, hello. Am I having internet issues here? Am I back? Am I? Right, guys, am I back? Let me know. Okay. Yeah, I think I am going to have to probably end this because I don't trust my internet right now. So yeah, I was in the process of saying something about Saudi Arabia. And yes, it's definitely become they've definitely been doing this. I've talked about it one. I did talk about it once before with Saudi Arabia with the what was it, the blooming WWE, when that debacle was going on with the Jamal Khashoggi stuff. So I only wish that was the case. Okay. I'm going to sign off out though, because I clearly cannot trust my internet right now. Thanks, sir. Thanks, sir. Everyone who's been in the chat. I'll say thanks to even if this wasn't a thing you were particularly that interested in. If you were a mod, thanks for sticking around, because like I said, I have been half expecting certain trolls to show up here. Yeah, I am going to be somewhat expecting that in live streams going forward for a few weeks. We'll see. But I'm going to go because I don't trust my internet, and it's getting boiling hot in this room because it's and I can see to the point I can see that my face has gone red as well. So, okie doke. See you all later. Salute.